so we'll do that. It's recording, we're live, here we go. Okay, so how can I help clarify this kind of third step in the outline process? It's a big, ugly title, and yeah, so what's your question?
So what I just mentioned was I kind of read it wrong, and for some reason in my head I thought what we were turning in last time was like a format of the thesis. I think I'm confused on if it's like a format of the thesis or a format of the proposal.
I can totally see where you're coming from. So where it says brain dump the contents of your thesis or dissertation proposal into your outline, the outline is the earlier step to working toward your eventual thesis or dissertation proposal. And the proposal itself is the eventual first 3 or 4 chapters of what will be your thesis or dissertation.
Okay.
So I said, take your thesis ideas and transfer them into the outline. That's actually sort of conceptually backwards, right? So there's no, for those of us writing this for the first time, there's no thesis to take from and put into the outline. So the correct way to state this would be work toward the eventual goal of having your thesis proposal by adding short bullet points, phrases, words, just little reminders to yourself into your outline, which currently, if you're on pace with the class, is just like chapter level headings, introductions, lit review, methods, and then within each of those chapters, subheadings or second level headings, we're calling them. So inside of methods, the subheadings would be things like study site and sampling frame and field data collection techniques and analysis techniques, stuff like that. So each of those would be a section within a chapter. But for our workflow here, we've just got, an outline so far. There's nothing written for your thesis or dissertation so far. So this step happens in typically a couple of passes. You don't sit down and bullet point out all of the content at once. That's a lot. That would be exhausting. And normally, you're coming up with these ideas and finding useful bits in your literature search and stuff like that as you go. And so, a pass for any given day on this step of composing your outline might just be a couple of bullet points, the stuff that you found that day or wanted not to forget from the day before or something like that. Does that kind of address it in brief, maybe?
Yeah, so like starting to just fill in like what the research site is or like what data collection techniques you're doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it might be things like, for the research site subsection or subheading, meaning a section of your methods chapter in your proposal. You might state Saline County and then come back the next day and clarify, we actually mean 3 specific corn and soy farms in Saline County. And, farm A is X thousand acres, farm B is Y thousand, and farm C is Z 100 acres and stuff like that. So it's filling in, it's expanding the points as you go, but not paying the cognitive tax of any of the sentence smithing or wordsmithing. It's just getting it all there so you can organize it easily in outline form.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So is there formatting differences between what would be turned in for a proposal, or like you said, it is like the first couple chapters of your thesis, but is it written differently?
Great question. Okay, so that's a separate question from just the outline phase. That's kind of for the next major step of your thesis proposal writing. And the only big difference is that the methods section is going to be written in your proposal as future tense. And in your thesis, it's past tense because you did it instead of saying we are going to do X, Y, and Z. Or X, Y, and Z will be done if you're using the passive voice for your particular writing. But done well, by and large, the the methods that you're proposing are going to be the methods that you do. And so it's not a writing in a different style or any different content really between the proposal and the actual methods chapter of your thesis or dissertation. It's just swapping the tense out. And I mentioned that the tense only changes really for methods because the previous research is still previous, whether it's your proposal or your thesis. And ideally, if you have the capacity to kind of plan out that far ahead, you're looking to be able to take your thesis proposal and do a Control Shift S or on OS X Command Shift S, a save as from your proposal, and that becomes your thesis. And you're just adding chapters to that when it comes to thesis writing time, because none of us have the time or the energy or the extra wherewithal to rewrite those first 3 chapters. That's absolutely silly. So one professional research hygiene kind of thing is to write this with the full intent, the express intent of copy pasting it right into the final document, for sure.
Okay.
Which is not to say you can't change things in your literature review. Please don't feel locked away from that, of course. But largely, that stuff isn't going to change a whole lot. The context, the background, literature review, those are what they are before your study and after. So bring them right forward. So.
Okay. I guess one other question I had was looking at the sample, the detailed outline format for dissertation that you put online. I mean, I guess it's kind of maybe it's up to us, but like under comprehensive lit review, you're talking about like, oh, what theories are you relying on? Would you recommend like we go ahead and you're like, okay, I'm gonna look at X, Y, and Z, and these authors are good for that topic, and kind of like putting those in succession, I guess.
Yeah, so that's another good question. And the question kind of underlying what you're asking is this format, this template, is this good for a thesis as well? A dissertation is very much like a thesis with one key difference. It typically has 3 manuscripts wrapped up inside of it instead of 1. A thesis normally becomes a single journal article. Sometimes there are 2 and so forth. So this dissertation format, and it's titled for dissertation on the course website, and then for theses in the actual document, which I need to change. But the comprehensive literature review wraps around all 3 of a dissertation's manuscripts, which are themselves fully self-contained. They've got their own miniature lit reviews that are short, typically a page or 2, if that. But the comprehensive literature review kind of helps tie all those together because you have more space, really as much space as you need to identify and explain, the unifying theories or the seminal studies on field type research, which aren't necessarily looking at a theoretical construct, they're just reporting what's out there. But your comprehensive lit review is inclusive of everything in each of those manuscripts lit reviews. And then whatever other sort of connective tissue, so to speak, you have to string together a coherent narrative in that. And then from there, you can basically shorthand the lit review inside each of the actual journal article format things. So it's a little bit less common for a thesis to be written in this format, but especially for people who are dead set on making sure that your hard work gets published in a publicly accessible research journal after you're ready to graduate. In that case, your thesis can have the same kind of format, but instead of 3 journal articles wrapped with a comprehensive literature review and bigger, longer introduction and stuff like that, it can just be the one wrapped by those things. That's a little bit of extra writing to kind of say things in full length format in a comprehensive lit review, and then in super brief, it's hard to edit stuff down to a short length for journal article submission. So some students, talk with their advisor, they decide that's not really the right fit for me. We'll carve a journal submission manuscript out of my thesis after I'm graduated, and we'll just write it straight through. So I only have one literature review because I have time and energy, and that makes sense to me in that particular case. So you have a couple of different ways that you can tackle it according to your needs and goals. And that's definitely a conversation you want to have kind of at length with your advisor, if you guys have that kind of a work culture. Because some advisors will push you to, have the submission article ready to go in your thesis just in case you run off with some amazing new job after you graduate with your master's degree in hand. And they really want to, not have and sometimes their hard work lost because you are busy with the next thing. Sometimes that happens. So sometimes with real rockstar students, you get poached by a future employer and don't even finish your thesis. And then your advisor's like, I've got this half-written proposal and some data sets, and the student's gone now. And that's a frustrating thing for us, but it's exciting for you because you got a rock star new job. So long story short, you can use the detailed outline format for dissertation. That's more for a dissertation format style thing.
Okay.
I'll have to update that template title inside the document. And then some of the other templates are like the bullet point example is more for a book style thesis, as it's called, where it doesn't have the manuscript embedded. It's just intro, lit review, methods, eventually results, discussions, implications, and then conclusions, and appendices, works cited, and all of that. So there's less duplication in that format, but there's more sort of rewriting and editing down later to turn that into an article versus front loading the writing and inserting the article inside of those chapters or as one of those chapters.
Okay. I think, yeah, most of my questions I think stemmed from, I was confused about the difference between the proposal and the thesis outline. But you clarified that.
Okay.
And one other thing, which is switching topics, for the on-campus lecture evaluations, is there a place where those are posted, or because I know
like
you said
announcements for them, or
yeah, like you mentioned it might be better to do one that's outside of our school, because I've seen some like posted on in the hallways, but other ones I was wondering where we can find those announcements.
Yeah, pretty much every building on campus has a bunch of flyers like what you're talking about. What I don't want people to do is put themselves in harm's way with respect to COVID-19 or anything like that. Just today, I was reading about a new recombinant strain that combines, I guess it's the Southern California ability to evade antibodies and the British strain's ability to be more infective, 50 to 70% more. It's got both of those mutations, so it's like one of those super mutants, which is fine. That's a natural thing for COVID to do here and there occasionally. But today I just got announced. So, if there's a TED talk or a Nova special, or if in your particular field of study, think about some of the professional organizations that do annual conferences or like regional conferences, maybe a national conference, maybe like a biennial international conference like every other year. In some cases, they'll post videos, just recordings, simple recordings of people, presenting their research and so forth. And it might be easier or safer for folks to track any of those down as well. Because again, the idea here is just to be able to kind of dissect the science communication techniques at play and the success or failures there versus getting pulled into the content. I know that when I try to do this with anything related to forestry, I get so engrossed in like what they're talking about instead of how they're talking about it. So that's kind of the soft recommendation to look for something outside your own program. But if you're not comfortable hunting around some random building on campus, for flyers and things, that's okay. We can certainly find some other things that are much safer for sure. So up to you. I trust you guys and gals to, make safe choices and do as you will. So.
All right.
Other questions?
I think that's it for now.
Cool. Those are all great questions. So that tells me I probably needed to do a better job of explaining those things, which is, appropriate for talking about science communication techniques. So there you go. Cool. I'll post this on our course website and take a look at kind of clarifying things on there for everybody. And if you have any other questions, we're going to be in this step for a couple of weeks, the adding bullet points to the thesis outline for those of us who haven't, written their thesis proposal yet, because this step is usually one of the longest. Once this is done, it's not a ton of effort to, expand the bullet points into sentences and hook the sentences together with transitions, and then that's your proposal. That's kind of it, and so forth. So we got plenty of time on this step if you're feeling the crunch. I know things are always kind of heating up for grad students. There's always something else getting piled on, so I'm sensitive to that. Anything else I can help you with?
That's it.
All right, cool.
Thank you so much.
Yep, I'll see you maybe tomorrow for our class session. Otherwise, next time, whenever that is.
Thanks. Stay safe.
Yeah, you too.